we have Emeritus Professor Leon van Schaik from RMIT giving a keynote, and to introduce him we have Professor Schaik, Dean of Monash University.
Good morning, everyone. You can hear me. So it is a great pleasure for me to be introducing Leon to you. As was said, Leon is Emeritus Professor of Architecture at RMIT University. He is an architect, writer and academic with research interests focusing on spatial thinking, poetics of architecture, urban design, and the processes involved in procuring innovative architectural practice and architecture. Leon is the originator of the whole trajectory of design or practice-based architectural research in Australia and has subsequently internationalised his unique program. I've had the privilege of knowing Leon for more than 30 years, which is somewhat of a shock, and I spent a number of those working with him as he developed the practice-based research program at RMIT. For many of us here today, it is through his leadership and promotion of practice-based research that he is best known. Leon established the practice research program to invite initially architects to reflect on their practice and develop critical insights into what is distinctive about what they do in their architectural design projects. This was founded on the view that design is a form of research in action. But like all research, it needs to be articulated and situated in broader fields of practice and determined contexts. This knowledge needs to be shareable and ideally leads to new innovation within the design process. Leon speaks of reflection as a public behaviour. The program at RMIT began with a cohort of 12 practicing architects invited to undertake research masters and is now, more than 30 years later, a globalised PhD program with biannual practice research symposia in Europe, the US and Asia. Distinctive to the program is the required twice-yearly practice research symposium, an intensive weekend event where national and international critics are invited to review the work in progress and give their insights into the conduct of the program. This globalisation of the program, due to Leon's extensive international network, has been a hallmark of the PRS. On occasions, this did lead to some distinctive feedback. I clearly remember during his plenary response, Yoshiharu Tsukamoto of Atelier Bow Wow describing the weekend's proceedings as punk architecture. I don't know whether you remember that, Leon. Alongside the developments of the research program, Leon has been a tireless advocate of design across many areas. The impact of his advocacy for innovation and innovative architectural procurement is evidenced in the remarkable campus at RMIT. He always proclaimed that the army marches on its stomach and the academy marches on its publications. Accordingly, he has been a prolific writer with books, to name a few, including Poetics of Architecture, The Practice of Practice, Design City Melbourne, Procuring Innovative Architecture, and Practical Poetics in Architecture. His impact has influenced the establishment of practice research programs in universities across the country and beyond. Recently, I was invited by the Canadian government to review a proposal for the establishment of the first practice research doctoral program in Canada. This initiative is being led by an alumnus of the RMIT program. For this remarkable contribution, Leon has been made a Life Fellow of the AIA, is the inaugural recipient of the Neville Quarry Medal for Architectural Education, and was awarded an AO. This morning, Leon will deliver a keynote address entitled In the Medium Itself, 3 Decades of Design Practice Research at RMIT, Please join me in welcoming Professor Leon van Schaik, AL.
Thank you very much, Shane, and thank you, Matthew and Sarah, for the invitation. I think you issued the invitation about a year ago, and I, for quite a while, wondered what I was going to do. I think, Matthew, you said you came to an event on the 25th anniversary of the programme, and that is what led you to think that you could invite me to address this audience. And I could have, I guess, looked on the shelves and found the lecture that I gave back then, which was 2011. But something else happened, and that is that at the end of last year, I was made an Emeritus and put on a path to pretty much retirement. And part of being made an Emeritus was the requirement to produce a lecture which reflected on the 30 years. And I'm subjecting you to a trial run for that lecture. You can see the lecture in its entirety here. And I'm going to try, and it's roughly speaking chronological, but there's a part which is about what I did before I came to RMIT, and the things that impacted on what I did at RMIT. There's a part about getting to grips with Australia, and I found a number of documents in my meagre archive. For example, the text of the speech I made when I applied for the job at RMIT. And so that there were a few things that, to my amazement, discovered that I've been doing the same thing all along. And then I spent some time looking at how that developed, and a whole period of actually trying to work out the nature of scholarship that we do and the way in which we do it in the university. And then I concentrated more down here on the actual design practice research program, and then finish a bit with some reflections about what next. Sorry. Let's see. So when I started this, I produced an ideogram, and I thought, what lies behind it all? It's a fascination with how you build cultures. And I guess that came from my exposure to Alvin Biarski and Peter Cook at the Architectural Association, and in particular observing the ways in which Alvin Biarski tried to build and substantiate a culture. Peter Cook was doing it in one way, and then on top of that, Alvin Biarski with a series of other things. These had never been written about, because he didn't record any of it. It was just my privilege to be here. And when I look at what we've tried to do, I think the first thing is that you set up an arena for argument, an arena for ethical argument. And I see that as being at the beginning of everything we're trying to do at RMIT. And then an understanding of the ways in which scholarship, each of us, grows through our own scholarship. And I use the concepts of Ernst Boyer on integrated scholarship, where there's an argument that research is not something which is separate from everything else, but that there are four scholarships. And some of you will have heard me say this so many times that we're beginning to know them already. There's a discovery of new things, there's the integration of new knowledge into existing knowledge, there's the working out how to apply knowledge, and there's the whole business of dissemination, which includes designing learning environments. And I see us each developing through cycles of those kinds of scholarship from the outset of our careers through to the point where we feel we've developed a mastery. And at the point at which we've developed a mastery, that gets peer recognition, and that's the point at which I think the reflection on what you've done becomes very important. And that's where we inserted what was a Shane was observed, originally a master's by research, has become a PhD program. And I mentioned that Shane was the very first architect to complete that at PhD level, having previously completed it as a research master's. We then also shift into an area of what it is to be a profession, knowing, doing, helping, being three key features of profession, and publishing, cataloguing, commissioning, all of those things. So there's a vertical trajectory to this, and through it, although many of us start from the same place, we slowly differentiate and become more ourselves. And in many ways, the PhD program is about expressing that selfness. So where do I come from? And I've written about this a lot, but I had a childhood in this kind of a landscape. I had a secondary education in this kind of a landscape. And I mention that now because of this shift from the southern hemisphere to the northern that I developed an interest in spatial intelligence and spatial history. And why did I develop that? It always seemed to me when I was a child that these two places were very much the same. The literature, everything that we spoke about, the magazines, they were all seamless. But when I went to England, I remember, I'll just give one instance. I was standing at the end of first year architecture, chatting to a group of my peers, and they were all talking about what we were going to do for the summer holiday. And you can imagine that you were me, and I am they. And they all said, well, we're going to go to Turkey. And I, with visceral response, I said, you mean Turkey? There was just no way I could see Turkey was down there. And I guess if I'd grown up in Australia, I'd be going to Turkey. And that set me wondering. And actually I had another thing happen today. When I was getting dressed, you probably can't see it because I buttoned it up because of this, but I have a white t-shirt under a blue shirt. And since my studies at Newcastle in fine art, all the trendy tutors wore t-shirts that you could see from underneath their shirts. And I've always thought this was a sign of progressive thinking. A couple of years ago, a trainer who was trying to get me fit said to me, I wish you wouldn't wear t-shirts under your shirts. It's so disgusting. It reminds me of all those old men who don't shave. And I had another of these kind of spiraling moments where one kind of spatial, mental picture was crashed into another. So that's where it comes from. So what did I left all of that. I went to study under Richard Hamilton initially. And I have to say a lot of what I do in terms of capturing ideas through drawing comes entirely from the year I spent with Richard Hamilton. I also started my architectural studies when I was channeling Alvar Aalto without really knowing it. I mean, I had been to Wolfsburg and seen his wonderful library there, but the school itself was kind of innocent of Aalto. And then, of course, I moved on from Newcastle on time to the Architectural Association, where I graduated under the tutorship of Peter Cook. And close on the heels of that, spent a year designing the Colindale Public Health Laboratories in North London. And you can see my desperate attempts to archigram the whole thing over there. The whole project was shelved for 10 years, and sadly when it was finally built, it looked much more like this. I was a practitioner, as Shane said, and my early practice was with Kate Heron, still a great friend. And one of our more significant projects was the the gallery for the House in the Stony Path. And that was a fraught experience. We had all of those extraordinary experiences that small practices have of working for clients who expect the world for very little money. And I can tell hilarious stories about measuring up and being told to go to the house of a banker, and I would be let in by the maid, and when I got there was nobody at home, and I measured up the outside, and then I banged on the door, and eventually the door was reluctantly opened, and I walked in and I saw a pair of men's shoes, and then I saw a pair of women's shoes, and then I thought I'd better retreat. Postpone the measuring up to another day. And also the kind of things that happen where Kate and I spent hours working out how to convert an ordinary little London terrace into some light-filled wonderland. And we achieved it, and the entire budget for the conversion, this is a long time ago, it was £4,000. And we were invited to the open house that the client held, and they proudly pointed to a print by Andy Warhol that they'd just hung on the wall, which had cost them £4,000. There was kind of dissonance between the value of what one did and what it meant to clients who stayed with them. Anyway, I also had a bit of a return to South Africa for family reasons, and became involved in the Urban Foundation, which was the first multiracial group trying to deal with urban issues in that country, and produced the Funda Centre, which was the first independent education centre. There's a lot of stories about that, and also very formative for me, and also for what I did afterwards, the creation of the sweat equity, self-design housing, self-built housing museum, which built some thousands of houses, and really was the subject around which I constructed my PhD. But in 1987, on the 100th anniversary of teaching architecture at RMIT, and 31 years ago I arrived in that city, which looked quite different then. And with this kind of program, I knew how difficult architecture was. I really wanted to celebrate mastery. I wanted us to capture the knowledge that was being produced, to publish, to exhibit, to discuss, and to commission. And this was an image which has been with me over the years. It's one of my earliest videograms. It owes a lot to Richard Hamilton and then to Peter Croft, because it comes out of the dissertation that I produced at the Architectural Association. It's about the consultant arriving at sea. You see the profile, because none of us sees in an objective way. We see through lenses. And I guess a major part of what I've tried to do is always express what those lenses are I'm using to look at whatever I'm using, and then also get all of us involved in the research, design practice research, to do the same thing. This might entertain you, but this is my attempt to come to grips with Australia. You can see I've got Melbourne and Tasmania at the top of the globe, and Darwin at the bottom. To my amazement, the country fits, roughly speaking, into a square. I was telling Shane last night that we were pioneers in my practice on a 3D computer-aided documenting system. And we discovered that 32,000 equaled infinity in that system. So if you put a wall in that was 32 meters long, it disappeared. It was early days in computing. And I discovered that there are 32,000 beaches around Australia. I also enjoy this one, that if you take the tarmac on Highway 1, it adds up to 470 square kilometres of tarmac. Anyway, that was done in 2005, it was done for the Rotterdam Biennale. But it's part of getting to grips with what it is to be here. You can also see that I've tried to relate the various latitudes to other latitudes on the other side of the globe. But in March 1986, I arrived at RMIT, and I had a 10-day interview, which I was absolutely certain I didn't want the job. Here in yellow, the highlights of what I was trying to get across. And in the event, they offered me the job, and my son, who found it, said, "You've got to take it," so I did. Anyway, the first thing I asked my colleagues to do was to start working on knowledge capture, and it seemed to me that we had an enormous waste, and the final year students' work would just disappear at the end of the year. So we started in 1987 with the first RMIT major project review catalogue, and they've been carrying on ever since. Here are some of the earliest ones. The first thing was just to actually exhibit and capture that and publish it, even in the humblest way. The other thing I wanted to do was recognise student achievement, and two of these quite sad, but in 1987 a very promising young architect, Anne Butler, was thrown from a horse and died, and her family came to me and said, "How can we commemorate her?" So we decided to create an award every semester, because the students at RMIT finish at the end of each semester. And that medallion and a quite handsome book prize goes to the best all-round major project semester. Sometime later, Antonia Bruns, who had been lecturing in film theory and architecture, also passed, and her mother asked for a way for her memory to be kept, and we decided on another medal, which goes to the most scenographic of the major projects in the year. And in 2011, 2012, on the 25th anniversary of my being there, I overhearing students going, "Oh, well, they shouldn't have won the RMIT, so-and-so should have won," and hearing that every time, I thought, right, how about getting the students to vote? So the major project students vote every semester, and one of their peers gets that peer recognition medal. And then recently, since Peter Corrigan died, we've instituted another medal, which is for the most culturally critiquing project. And those are big celebrations of student achievement. Right from early days, I've been trying to understand and been obsessed with triangles and cones, and in the whole business of understanding scholarship. And this is something that I wrote up for the 1989 RAI Polemic series about learner architects, learn architecture, and learning architecture, and the different ways in which we move through those realms. It was also the moment at which we started to accept fee-paying students, which since the end of the Colombo plan hadn't happened. And I was startled at RMIT by the monoculture, in the sense that most of the students were from Melbourne, grown up in Melbourne, and were studying with other students from Melbourne. So, aside from the financial side, which at the beginning wasn't that important, the real motivation for taking people on was to broaden the culture and get people to rub up against people from other places with other spatial histories. I was always very interested in the material culture, and it manifested initially in the purchase of this desk, which is a model of the Mackenzie House was going to be broken up, and I bought it, I think for $4,000. And this caused an uproar amongst the student body, not the architects, but the social scientists. Anyway, didn't last long. Oh, and then the student papers came up. It's got a slanting roof, and the desk slides like that, so the gutter there catches your pencil. Anyway, and I realised I was over the hump with the protests when the student rag came out and said this was the best place to make love on the campus. And of course, I've documented and been fascinated by the city's own passions about material culture. The wonderful story of Ron Robinson's songs, the vault, named by politicians, the yellow peril, and how it was moved, exiled, down to the river, as far towards the edge of the Melbourne city boundaries that councillors could get it. Then it came back to grace the grounds of Akka, and then Howard Raggett, even before that, great passionate believer in the material culture too, incorporated it into the designs for Story Hall. So, this part's maybe a little bit out of joint, but anyway, for various reasons which I've written about, I got the opportunity to get control of the campus development process and the appointment of architects, and articulated these criteria for the selection of architects. And we still work to those, and I've now, for a couple of years, drawn from this process the most recent state award-winning